Okay, I'm going to cut to the chase. Hi, I'm Johny Tork. I recently stumbled upon this old Twitter account of mine 8 years ago that lived for one day for this one not insane, cute, weird, whatever story. It's a cute little story. So I'm going to read it, beginning and end now. Other stuff was just all the take one, take two. I'm going to try to go through it without explaining or laughing hysterically at something that's probably nobody else is going to find funny. Let's see where it goes. The date is October 1st, 2022, 8:33 a.m., Sacramento, California, coming at you. It was a typical morning at the clinic. I just arrived to relieve the first gal for her lunch break. The smell of wet pavement blew through the door as she walked into the office. Janice asked her to have a seat. As I walked into the office, our eyes met. Not a passing glance. One of those meeting with the eyes that can go terribly wrong if you forget to smile. She was already looking at me when our eyes met. Instinctively, I glanced over my shoulder to be sure she wasn't looking at someone behind me. You know, someone attractive. I approached the desk as Janet left and greeted her. She must have been around 30, which happens to fit into the appropriate age range according to the bylaws set forth by no one in particular. She had a sort of timid, sweet vibe about her, beautifully fragile. The kind of girl that you'd instantly become protective of, not in a creepy, possessive way, but in a brotherly, fatherly way. We talked a little bit about ourselves, not in much detail. I think this can be a song. Just enough to find out she used to volunteer at this clinic. Now she works at the Bed Bath & Beyond. Speaking of Beyond, she asked if the psychiatric unit was still open. She remembered looking into the window, watching patients walk around in circles. I pictured a frustrated tiger in a shabby zoo pacing back and forth day after day. Kind of like Chris Rock when he really gets into it. I told her it was closed, but I had heard plenty of stories. I told her that I worked in the emergency room. I'll tell you one of those stories one time. And we got our fair share of crazies over there. She told me she heard of stories of people in the ER putting things where they don't belong. And I mentioned a recent, otherwise known as recent circumstance involving a man and a remote control. This is as good as it's going to get. Again, not a Roku remote, but like a full light, big light. No. I wouldn't even try a Roku remote, if I'm being honest. Okay. My penis is about the size of a Roku remote. Just for them. Honestly. Pretty much. Not the same color, obviously, but about the same size. Perhaps she's not. I wish William Shatner would read this. Oh my god, I'm gonna do it as William Shatner at some point, but not today. I'm gonna have to practice that. Perhaps I'm not a good William Shatner. I'm not a good impersonator. Perhaps I'm just gonna try the style of William Shatner. But no, that's cheesy. Yes, William Shatner, you're cheesy. Team George Takei. It's Takei, not Takai. Takai means rich. Oh my. Team Shatner. Never. No, I love it. Perhaps. Now I want to do it as George Takei. I think that'd be much sexier, but he's got a much deeper voice than me. I'm going to do it as me. Perhaps she's not quite as innocent as first suspected. I must remember her name. Bed Bath & Beyond. If for nothing more than the slim chance that she found me the least bit attractive or interesting. We must meet again. This takes another turn, folks. Oh boy. So this, as we're... Okay. I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to start from there again. Because it rolls into... It goes for another... It makes another turn. Oh, God. Okay. Make it just fuck off. Perhaps she's not quite as innocent as I first suspected. I must remember her name. Bed Bath & Beyond. If for nothing more than the slim chance that she found me the least bit attractive or interesting, we must meet again. Am I right? Bump into her. Like, hey, oh, remember? If I bump into her and she's like, that'll be $39.74, sir. With no, then I'd be like, okay. She must be having an off day. No, I'm kidding. That would be it. If I went in and was like, hey, and she's like, yeah, how can I help you? It would have been like, okay. But here we go. Perhaps she's not quite as innocent as I first suspected. She's talking about guys sticking foreign objects up their butt. Now here I'm going to take a turn. I apologize in advance. Because I just had this thought the other night. Oh, whatever, at work. Sometimes I just think about stuff. So I had another like joke idea about a foreign object in my rectum. And then I remembered that back in the 80s, late 80s maybe, early 90s maybe, WCW in particular, I'm a wrestling fan. Jim Ross used to say, I think Jim Ross in particular, I remember. Love you, Jim Ross. Changing, and I'd love to hear, the story's probably out there. I just haven't researched it, but they used to say foreign object. Anytime a guy would use a fork or whatever, a spoon or something to gouge, whatever, foreign object in wrestling, like an illegal weapon, like a shiv or whatever. So at one point in wrestling, I think only in the WCW, they changed foreign object to international object, which I'm like, oh no! Oh, Jim Ross, I'm sorry. Oh no, Tony! Whatever, I can't do a Jim Ross impression, but he just hit him with an international object, and I'm like, what? Anyway, okay, I'm gonna continue, and I promise I'll try to do one all the way through. But it makes another turn, and she's talking about foreign objects, aka international objects, being entered into the rectum. She's not as innocent as I saw this like kind of meek girl come in, and I'm kind of a shy person too, believe it or not. And I was like, oh, and we kind of locked eyes, I guess. And I thought we had a moment. And there have been other times when I thought we've had moments. And there have been times when we have had moments. I have had some moments, okay? Believe me, I've had moments. But then there have been a lot of near misses. This was like a near miss. Not even like, it didn't even get close to that. So here we go. Perhaps she's not quite as innocent as I first suspected. I must remember her name. Bed Bath & Beyond. If for nothing more than the slim chance that she found me the least bit attractive or interesting, we must meet again. I think I need some sheets and a new soap dispenser. Our conversation never slowed. No awkward pauses. I feel like we could have talked for hours. Just two lonely, lost souls finding temporary solace in a bird of the same feather. Perhaps that is all it was. I asked her to have a seat up front and help the next customer. An elderly couple trying to figure out how to sign in. I interrupted their confusion with a joke and a smile. I glanced back to the corner where she was sitting now. A spot I would have chosen in the back corner, out of sight, out of mind. The easiest way to float through life. But it doesn't have to be that way, does it? Let me go back. I feel like a teacher now. Because it ends kind of sweetly. Our conversation never slowed. No awkward pauses. I feel like we could have talked for hours. Two lonely souls finding a temporary solace in the bird of the same feather. Perhaps that is all it was. I asked her to have a seat up front and help the next customer. An elderly couple trying to figure out how to sign in. I interrupted their confusion with a joke and a smile. I glanced to the back corner where she was sitting now. A spot I would have chosen. In the back corner. Out of sight. Out of mind. The easiest way to float through life, but it doesn't have to be that way, does it? I finished up and exited through the front door, not like the bat, like I usually would. Get one more look at her, one more smile. Can you blame a guy? Can you blame a guy for wanting just one more interaction with the first girl I've interacted with with so much and so very long? She watched me leave and smiled back at me. Hang on. She watched me leave and smiled at me. I smiled back. I'm fairly certain I'll never see her again. I should just chalk it up to a lovely experience with a girl. A beautifully fragile girl. Beautifully fragile.